Good evening and welcome. Thank you for registering with Voices of Tomorrow's first session of the Financial Literacy Training. Before we start, I would like to welcome Voice of Tomorrow's CEO, Zamzam Mohammed, who will say few words. Zamzam, welcome.
Thank you so much, Abdiwali. It's really honored to be in this space with you all. As Abdiwali said, my name is Zamzam Mohammed, and I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Voices of Tomorrow. And I would just kind of maybe quickly share with you a little bit about Voice of Tomorrow for those many of you who might have heard about Voice of Tomorrow, and just kind of highlight the work that we do really quickly as an agency. Abdiwali, if you can go to the next slide.
It's downloading.
Oh. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Today's objective will be to, one, the introduction of the training about Voice of Tomorrow overall, the Voice of Tomorrow's finance training that we are here for tonight, and as well as about the overview intent of the Childcare Stabilization Grant and what is really allowed as an expenses and what you can use for the grant. And then the supporting documents of what it would look like, when audit comes in a year or two, for those who will be selected for auditing. But most importantly, answer any questions that you have or provide you the answers that you need for the Ccsg related to specifically for this grant. As an agency, just to kind of give you, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of the agency as a whole. We are a nonprofit organization here in King County, but also provide support to across Washington State. We support children and families and the early learning practitioners in around dual language, as well as wraparound support, including what we hear for tonight, including services and resources. We are an agency that really takes pride in providing cultural linguistic support around racial equity and social justice, and we support over 800 children across Washington, including center-based family childcare and specifically to the East African families. But overall, we also support the immigrant and refugee communities in Washington State. Something that we're really proud is that we have a dual language preschool program that is Somali and English, first in the nation. We're really proud of that. We serve about 160 children in King County this year, but potentially could increase a little bit more next year as well. This is really the layout of the training for the Ccsg, just so that you have an understanding of the session that are coming up and times that we are providing in here. The sessions are 5 sessions, and one of the sessions is tonight that we're providing right now, which is the Childcare Stabilization Grant. What can you use the fund for? And all the sessions, as you can see, the dates are Wednesdays, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the next one that's coming up is the next Wednesday, which is January 12th, and we'll be talking about separating businesses from personal experiences to budgeting, accounting, to the following auditing and record keeping, and then also prepping for the audit and notification responses and follow-up. So you can definitely mark your calendars on these dates. And again, it will be here in this Zoom link, as well as making sure that you have this information so you can pencil your calendars. In April, what we'll start is another phase of the training, which will be kind of what we call it money and grant talk. And this is really kind of a drop-in session. So if you come in one of these sessions that we're providing training and you think about, well, I have this actually follow-up question. I don't know what this really means. I didn't have the opportunity to ask this question. This will be an opportunity for you to drop in and ask questions and receive answers specific to the grant. So this is really kind of like join us virtually, and it will be open and end question opportunity for you to ask any question, anything that you would like to know a little bit more. And those sessions will start in April, and these are the dates and times. And it will be, again, in Zoom link. We'll be providing those links to you as early as possible, so you have this one as well in your calendars. What we're going to do quickly is we are sending out a poll just to kind of get a room temperature on who has received the funding so far. who is applying currently right now, who has applied already and is waiting for the funding, just so that we understand how to tailor this conversation a little bit more to the audience and people participating in the conversation and with us in here tonight. So you can see right away the polls coming in. Thank you for those individuals that are taking and clicking on the poll, giving us the answers that we need to help the training be more focused to the audience in the room. So you can see right away that we are getting a lot of, I have received the funding choices, which is 85%. And then also we haven't received the funding, but have applied for it as well as a part of that. And let me see if I can scroll down here. And in terms of centers versus providers, we have a little bit more family childcare providers in this room, and then centers, and as well as a family friend neighbor care providers, which shows the diversity in here. So when we're talking about, allocation, what can the money be used, we'll definitely keep in mind who are in the room, both center, family childcare, as well as the FFN providers in our training today.
All right, ready for the second slide, Zamzam?
Yes. Okay, and the next slide is that we have the honor and the privilege to have Abdouali Mohammed, who is a CPA and have done many trainings for us, and well-rounded and well-knowledgeable about financing as well as accounting, to be here with us to really help us, all of us, to conduct this training. So welcome, Abdouali, and thank you so much, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to join with you tonight.
Zamzam, thank you very much for that introduction. I am a local CPA, registered and practicing in Washington State. If you need more information about me and my firm and what we do, my website is provided there as well. One of the things that Zamzam didn't mention is that you're probably wondering, what's a CPA doing with childcare providers? Well, don't think of yourself as only childcare providers. Think of it as a business person who runs a business. And I also have the privilege of having some of my family members run daycare centers and home care providers. So you can say that I'm actually very familiar with what childcare providers go through. So in our presentation tonight, I would like you just to put on different glass sets. And that is put yourself as a business person. What do I need to do in order to run my business efficient and to make sure that if I have received this grant, that I'm actually using these funds for what's allowed for? So that's really the objective of our training tonight. All right, so just a little bit thing. Normally we'll tell you what the bathroom is, what the exit is and stuff, but because we're doing Zoom here, we're not going to be mentioning this. So you're more than welcome to take a break if you need to. And even though I have a camera in front of me, I'm going to be looking to my left, so that I have to make sure which slide number I'm on, so that you take full advantage of this session tonight. So we're just going to go ahead and start with our training. So let me ask you this question, and also ask yourself this question: why are you here today? Or why are we here today? So just think about that for a moment. You're probably wondering, I don't know why I'm here, or I kind of know why I'm here, or I definitely know what I'm here, and I want to know more. Well, you're here because you want to fully understand the DCYF's Childcare Stabilization Grant, also known as CCSG, and what the funds can be used for. By the way, I'm going to be referring to CCSG instead of saying the long name, just the FYI. So that's why you're here for. So for those of you who haven't really applied for the CCSG or thinking about applying, you probably want to know, what is the CCSG? And for those of you who apply for the CCSG and have received the funds, you kind of have an idea of what the CCSG is. So first and foremost, the grant itself is actually a federal grant from our federal government, and the state of Washington, through the Department of the Department of Children and Youth and Families as their primary recipient. The purpose of this grant is to use to stabilize and support and grow the diverse early learning workforce of our childcare providers. As I have mentioned, it is from DCYF, and Zamzam mentioned in her introduction, it can be subject to audit and review by the department itself, and sometimes our own Office of the State Auditor. The grant itself consists of 3 funds, and it's very important that you have to understand what these 3 funds can be used. We're going to go through in detail later tonight, but it consists of the program amount, the workforce amount, and the add-ons, okay? As I mentioned before, it is to provide financial relief to childcare providers to help with unexpected expenses. We are still under the pandemic, and this pandemic started 2020 March or April, depending on when you actually closed your center or your business. And for those of you who actually can compare 2020 or 2021 to 2019, you can definitely see the difference. And one of these major differences was the reduction of your revenue or number of enrollments of children that was at your center or your home-based childcare center. The purpose of the grant is also for you to continue and provide childcare. Now, one thing that Voice of Tomorrow, and including myself, is recommending is that you read the grant agreement and understand what the requirements of the grant agreement is. We can fully understand that it can be maybe 20, 30, 40 pages. Sometimes it can be boring, but it's really crucial that you read the document itself and understand the requirements of this grant. Understand what the program amount is, understand what the workforce amount is, and also the add-ons. Understanding the total amount of the grant will definitely help you avoid using the funds for what we call in the accounting world unallowable cost. We will now focus on what the grant can be used for. I understand while I'm presenting this that you might have questions. Feel free to type those questions in the Zoom session, and we'll definitely try to answer them during the presentation. We will also going to have Q&A sessions at the end of our presentation. So it's up to you if you want to keep that question at the end of the session, or if you have a burning question, we'll definitely stop and try to provide you an answer. Sometimes you might ask a question that might be heavily technical, and we will take that question under advisement, and within 24 to 48 hours, we'll definitely provide you an answer. Just because we didn't answer today doesn't mean we don't know the answer. We just want to make sure that we're going to give you an accurate information. Let's do a poll. Let's do another poll, Gregory. So this poll is kind of basically to understand how knowledgeable you are with the Ccsg spending requirement, if you have already received the Ccsg itself, and if you are someone who is applying for the Ccsg, have already applied, and have an idea of what the Ccsg grant requirement is. So Gregory, let me know when the participants answer a majority of the questions, or the majority of them answer.
Majority of everyone in the room at 63% said they feel a little knowledgeable and need a lot of information about the grant. 22% says I have no knowledge, but I'm here to learn. And about 14% said I'm very knowledgeable, but I want to learn a little bit more information.
Great. Thank you for that feedback. I think those 3 groups will definitely benefit from today's session. So let's continue. All right. What can these funds be used for? One, it must be spent on items which sustain the childcare business? Ask yourself this question. And this is actually the question that I ask all my clients, specifically clients who are thinking about, can I deduct this expense on my taxes? The same question will be, can I use these funds in order to be a Ccsg allowable expense? So will the daycare have purchased or incurred these costs if the business was not in the daycare business, right? If the answer is no, it's most likely not allowed or unallowable. Okay, a good example may be, charging your business account your Capo San Lucas vacation. That's definitely a no-no, and probably an extreme example. All right, we're going to get into details now, what you can use the CC funds for. DCYF have actually provided a guide that looks like at some of the different allowable categories for the Childcare Stabilization Grant, and it offers a sample of allowable purchases for each category. Please make sure, and we want to inform you that the guide that DCYF provided is not inclusive. There are some expenses that are allowable, but that's not listed in the guide. The objective of DCYF was just to kind of give you an example or an idea of the type of expenses that you can actually use for the for the CCYF grant. You can use this tool as a way to get ideas on how to spend down your grant. In my previous slides, I mentioned 3 types of funds that makes up the CCSG grant. The first one is the program amount. The second one is the add-on amount. And the third one is the workforce amount. And each one of them, we're going to go into detail, and we're going to be providing some examples. We're going to start with the workforce amount. The workforce amount must be used to increase wages and benefits, and it must be used for recruitment and retention activities, okay? So you're probably wondering, what does this really mean? Let's just take a step back. And for those of you, I'm going to use 2 examples here. One example is for center-based childcare providers and home-based childcare providers. I'm going to start with the center-based childcare providers. For the center-based childcare providers, you were already paying wages. You already had a payroll, right? And let's just make an example of one of your instructional assistants or one of your teachers, and you were paying them an hourly rate. Let's say the hourly rate was $20 an hour, okay? You're already incurring that expenses. Now that you have received an additional fund from DCYF for the CCSG grant, this amount or this fund will actually allow you to increase their hourly rate from, say, $20 to maybe $22, okay? That's one way. If, for example, that employee was going to leave or quit or find another job, you can use that money to retain the employee, okay? DCYF says this must go above and beyond your regular payroll and benefits. It can be used for bonus, retention, and recruitments and stuff. I hope that makes sense. Now I'm going to go ahead and provide an example for a home-based childcare provider. Some home-based childcare providers is being operated by one person, or maybe one person and an assistant. You can use the same example as a center childcare provider. You can increase your assistant's hourly rate, say from $15 to maybe $17. If you were paying yourself a monthly, or you were doing what we call an onerous withdrawal, you can also increase that as well. I hope that makes sense. Before I go to the next slide, any question about this slide or anything I said, I'd be more than happy to answer. And Gregory, I'm not really looking at the Zoom comments. If you can let me know what the questions are.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm friends and family, and we don't get paid $15 an hour. So how I don't understand how we would pay ourselves. I mean, we make $2.65 an hour.
So I'm sorry, repeat.
I'm kind of confused.
By the way, let me just, so the $15, that was an example that I used. Okay, if you're paying yourself less than that, you can increase your wages. You say your friends and family?
Yes.
Okay. And how much you being paid right now?
$2.65. I get paid through the state.
You get paid through the state.
Right.
So did you receive this grant?
Yes. Actually, I received the grant. I applied. I didn't think that I would be eligible for it, but everybody kept saying, apply, apply, apply. So I applied, and they sent me the grant amount, which is $750, I believe, for friends and family. And then they added on an additional amount.
Okay. So I will definitely provide you. You're probably one of, you're probably very an exception to this session today, but I'll definitely give you an answer at the end of the session. Okay. So let's take that question. Let's have that on question. Gregory.
I have a question.
Hi, Camilla. Go ahead.
I'm also an FFN and have received my grant and having a little bit of an issue with like, how do we pay ourselves and stuff like that.
Definitely. We'll have an answer for you at the end of the session. So the same question as Lori. Any question, any question about the examples I provided for a home-based childcare provider or a center-based childcare provider?
I'm center-based.
Go ahead.
My question is, if we give our staff raises, what happens when we run out of money?
That is really a very interesting question. I'll just be very direct with you. You might have to find a way to formulate this workforce amount. And what we can do is I have a Q&A sessions here. So I don't want to go through right now while I'm presenting. There is probably an answer for you here. And I'll definitely provide that to you at the end of the session. Okay,
thank you.
But that's an excellent question because you're right. Let me finish. Hi.
I have a question too.
Okay.
I'm a family child care provider.
You're what?
Debbie Hayford. I'm a family child care provider.
Okay.
I have been struggling to find an assistant, but I was recommended by Tom Copeland at a class that we took to pay it called a bonus. So if I'm able to hire someone, then I give them a bonus during this time that I have this extra money. I don't increase her wage because at the end of the money being gone, I'm not going to be able to afford to pay that. But instead, I give her a bonus.
Yeah.
Is that, or I pay myself. If I can't end up hiring somebody, which I've tried for 4 years now, then I can just pay myself. And you're going to explain that at the end.
No, you can definitely pay yourself. One of the workforce amount includes paying yourself a bonus as well. It's not only for the employee, it's also for you too as well.
So the workforce amount was $9,000,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so since I'm really struggling to hire someone, and she did not pass she had a negative TB time and had to go in and pay for blood work. And so I told her, as part of trying to recruit her, that I would pay for that blood work to be done.
Absolutely. It's part of the recruitment expense. Yes, you can.
Okay. So all I got to do is just write recruitment paid for blood work.
Yes. Just keep your receipts.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay. I want to let folks know that we have abundant time, 6 to 9. So in the interest of time, what we can do is you can really write down your question on the Zoom comments, and we promise you we're going to give you an answer before the session is over.
My question is gonna be quick. I just
Okay.
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Because I think I don't know if I belong here. Because somebody referred me to here. So I used to be an FFN worker in 2021 of October, but I stopped being the childcare provider. Now I work with an agency that do caregiver. So now I'm a caregiver. So I wanted to know that am I qualified for the grant? Because I don't know if I belong here or not.
A caregiver? Are you talking about like healthcare sector, correct?
Yes, I take care of older people with disability and stuff.
Yeah, this grant does not apply to you.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, because he told me that I can be eligible for it if I was because I was a childcare provider in October of 2021. That's what he have told me.
You have to be an active childcare provider right now to be eligible for this grant.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Take care of yourself. Good night.
Good night.
All right, so I think some of the questions you might have, this slide might answer. So examples of what workforce funds can be used for are bonuses or incentive payment for your employees or yourself if you are a licensed family home owner operator with no other employees. Sign-on bonus for new employees. You can also use it for employee healthcare premium or prepaid annual deductible or wage increase. I want to spend a little bit extra on the last two bullet points. And I think as a CPA, I look at things from what can I get it from the long-term benefit from this amount that I got. One of those things might be a wage increase, right? So for example, think of yourself as the employer and you have an employee and you probably need that assistant to be with you for at least a year or for 2 years. So sometimes in business, as a business owner, you might have to make sacrifices. And those sacrifices can be that I might have to earn less right now in order for me to make more at the end. So for those of you who have 15 or less capacity, you probably received the $9,000, right? That's probably how much you see for the workforce. One of the things you can do actually is you can use the $9,000 as a wage increase, right? I used the example of $15 if you were paying somebody. You could probably be paying less or more. You can probably spread that $9,000 for over a year as the grant allows you to spend it within a year, right? So take that $9,000, maybe divide it by 2,080 hours, which is technically a full-time individual's working hours for the whole year, and probably you will get an amount and add that amount to the amount of the hourly you're paying. That's one way of really retaining your employee without providing a bonus or incurring rotation expenses. Another incentive might be if you weren't providing an employee healthcare premium before, this might be a one way to pay for the healthcare premium for that employee and for yourself. That's one way of thinking, right? And instead of just focusing on bonus. Yeah, thank you. And instead of just focusing on bonus, or incentive or retention, you can focus on these two other important things, right? It's very important for you to retain an employee. It's very important for you to recruit a good employee, right? But it's also a good idea for you to also try to increase your employees' wages and provide other benefits. That's not only paying the employee. Okay?
Can I ask a question? Deborah McPherson got kicked out of this meeting. Can you put her back in? It says she can't get back.
One of our hosts will let her in. Can you please let her in? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll let her in when her name pops up.
Thank you, Gregory. So we'll continue. So now that you have used the workforce amount, right? Or you're continuing to use the workforce amount, what documents do you really need in order to document the workforce amount? And these documents are documents that you have to keep it for at least 5 years. DCYF can contact you 3 years from now, 4 years from now, or 5 years from now. So you have to make sure you have your records for at least 5 years. And I will really encourage you to, if you can, to invest on the cloud. Somebody's on the cloud, you don't have to pay a subscription. If you are a Microsoft or Hotmail user or Outlook user, you can use OneDrive. It's free. All you have to do is scan and save them there. If you are a Google user, you can use Google on the cloud. They also have a storage for you to store your documents. All you probably have to do is buy a $100, $200 worth of a scanner and just scan those receipts instead of losing them, and make sure you categorize them, okay, for what they are, maybe a type, the month it was incurred, and the year, okay? So that's just more of the receipts. But for the workforce amount, because you're using that fund as part of the payroll, right? Because you have increased an employee's wages, we have given them a bonus, you have given them incentive, or you have chosen to cover their health premium, all those types of expenses are going to show up on the pay stub. Some of you who are probably a home care child-based business who is only one person, you're probably thinking, I never run a payroll before. That is true. But if you have an employee now, or if you have an assistant now, well, they're considered an employee. You have to have a payroll record or a payroll ledger. And there are numerous payroll providers out there that you can use. Gusto is one of them. QuickBooks is one of them. They're probably the cheapest. The expensive ones are Paychex or ADP. You probably have heard from them. Or you can just Google a local bookkeeper in your neighborhood, or an accountant or a CPA that provides payroll services. And they can actually help you navigate that process. If you go that route, you don't have to worry about submitting forms to the IRS, submitting forms to the labor and industry, submitting forms to the Employment Service Department, ESD, or unemployment, because the payroll provider will do that work for you. And your employee will probably get a direct deposit, or you will issue them a check. So that's what we mean on the first bullet point: payroll and benefits record from a payroll report. Also, when you hire an employee, that employee must be eligible to work in the United States, right? They must have a valid Social Security. They must have a valid ID. They must have some type of a federal document that can satisfy the legal residency, or if they're actually born in the United States. So, for example, if you're hiring somebody who was born in the U.S., a passport might be one document. If they don't have a passport, maybe a birth certificate or another form of document that will confirm that they were actually born in the U.S. If they were not born in the U.S. and they're not a U.S. citizen yet, most likely they will have a green card or I-94. So make sure you have those documents on your file, because if DCYF comes and they ask for a payroll report and they see my name as an employee of yours, Abdul Ali Muhammad, they're probably going to ask you for, what is your hiring documents? Where's the W-4, the ID, the driver license, the I-94, and the Social Security card, right? Imagine yourself, you are probably an employee once. Take the same steps that the HR department that hired you took. Nothing is different. Okay? Employee time cards. If you are using the payroll providers, there is one way of communicating. One way might be, hey, you're going to work for me a fixed 4 hours a day. That's 5 times a day. That's 20 hours. That means I'm paying you 40 hours a week, right? I'm sorry. 40 hours every 2 weeks. So whoever is handling the payroll for you, you will have to communicate that to them and say, Abdul Ali Muhammad worked 40 hours this last 2 weeks. Please go ahead and process the payroll. And the pay stub will definitely show 40 hours. However, you also have to have time cards at your center or at your home that shows in and out of the employee. The old school might have been just like a long sheet that has the employee name, employee's ID number, and the beginning of a pay period, and the beginning of and the end of a pay period, and then you have like date and month, hour in, hour out. That's the old school cards. But if you go with one of the payroll providers, they might actually have a time card, what we call a soft copy time card, where the employee actually have an account and they will go online and they will submit. For example, QuickBooks use something called timesheets. Write that down and Google it. There's probably a video on YouTube, and it gives you an idea of how it works. So that's one way of having employee cards. I mentioned the payroll provider will do all the filing of the tax requirements, the IRS, the LNI, and ESD, okay? Because we want to make sure, or DCYF wants to make sure, that if you say you have paid an employee, that you have also remitted the payroll taxes to the agencies, the federal agency and the state agencies, okay? Last but not least, on this slide, bank statements. Why is this important? It is important because, one, the funds were deposited into your bank, into your business account, or for some of you, in your personal account. That's a different day. We're going to talk about that, mixing personal and business, right? But the goal here is that paycheck or that direct deposit have actually cleared the bank, right? Because DCYF gave you workforce amount, which was to enhance your payroll wages, is to make sure that the expenses are actually clearing on the bank. Okay? Any questions related to workforce dollars before we go to the second of one of the three funds of the DC of the grant?
Can we Zelle our employee money and have that count or not?
Great question. The answer is no, because when you Zelle somebody, you're not actually deducting any expenses. A Zelle payment, I can't tell if a Zelle payment was if you're actually sending me movie money or if I owed you money. I can't tell that. So you can't Zelle your employee. You have to use a payroll check or a direct deposit from a payroll provider. I hope that was clear.
I have question too. That grant money I can use, for example, for my daycare gains, or for example, the floor or the construction, something I can pay for that.
That question, please save it. It's coming. It's one of it's coming under the program add-ons. Okay, I don't want to answer that right now, but write that question down.
Excuse me.
Hi, I have a question.
The questions I'm taking now relates to the workforce amount. Okay.
Yes, I have a question related to workforce amount.
Okay, Shino, go ahead. Shino Sherko Ali, right?
Yes, that's right. I'm a family childcare provider, and I have a question related to workforce. I might be my assistant might be my family members, and I never gave them any paycheck roll. So how would I prove the document of these expenses?
So previously you had an assistant, right? I want to make sure I reiterate your question before I answer.
Family members are assisting me with the daycare.
Were you paying them before?
I just pay them, but not by the paycheck roll,
Okay.
Yeah. There's no document, no proof of that,
Okay.
So I can.
So Shino,
yeah.
Those days are behind you right now, because these are federal funds / state funds. You have to give them a paycheck, and you have to withhold taxes from them. So
I have to change this to an
Yes.
Okay. You got it.
And I have a question, Abdulali.
Yes, Momina.
My question is, I understand that you said in the workforce amount, the best way to use is for payroll and for person to be deducted from tax. What about the providers that are not using the payroll and system? Can they just write a check, a business and check from their business account, and can they just document that, or is it not going to work out?
It's not going to work out because I'm going to go back to this slide here. You see here my arrow, it says ESD wage reports or IRS wage reports for each employee. So if you just write a check from your business, how will DCYF, if they submit for an audit, how will they know that you have actually also paid the employer portion of taxes and you withhold the employee? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But like when we're just doing the application, there was a place that was saying that for the workforce amount, if you don't have an employer, you can just increase your payment as the owner of the
yes.
Of the business.
So
a lot of providers that are not using the payroll and system. That's going to be very challenging.
No, thank you so much for elaborating, because you just mentioned you are only one provider and you have no assistant, correct? Is that right, Momina? So
yes.
So here you do not have to go through a payroll provider. You can actually write yourself a check from your business account, pay to Momina Hassan. You can take that check, deposit into your personal account, but make sure on the memo line you're documenting. You can put something like workforce amount bonus or workforce amount incentive, right? Because you're the only person, because you will pay, and I'm using quotes, okay? You will pay the payroll taxes when you file your annual taxes with the IRS. You'll be subject to self-employment taxes, and that self-employment taxes includes a portion of the payroll taxes you're going to pay. I hope I answered your question, Momina.
Yeah, you answered very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions relating?
Yes, I have a question.
We have to move on, but I'll take two more questions. But rest assured, we're going to answer your questions at the end of the session. I just have like a few more slides to go through. But go ahead, please. Azayatu.
Can I go? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Still, I'm a family childcare provider. And then, still on the workforce amount. Like me, I have an employee. I mean, she's my family member, but I already added her on all my document as an employee, and I don't have payroll. I'm used to pay her by Zelle. I just heard that it's not good to do that. But with this, let's say with this money, I received the amount. I received the grant money, but I didn't touch anything yet because I want to make sure I am using it on the right way. So, like for the 9,000, can I just do like a check and then say, okay, this is the 9,000. I can give it to her, or can we both share that 9,000?
Okay.
I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I think a similar question was asked, and I'm gonna answer it again. So let's divide two things, okay? If you are by yourself, if you are only one person, you're the owner and the person working the business, you do not have to go through a payroll, okay? You can write a check to yourself, write a bonus. However, if you have an assistant, by law, even if this money didn't exist, okay? Even if this money didn't exist, if you had an employee, you were supposed to be withholding taxes from them and also paying taxes. So this is not something new. It always existed. And I will encourage you to change your habits, not just only you, but everybody who's paying their assistants in a Zelle or a Cash App or giving them a check, writing a check, because they're an employee. It doesn't matter if they're your family member or not, right? They're an employee. They're subject to payroll taxes. I hope I clarified that question for you and for others. Yes.
You just give us some example about those payroll company. You just said one that is not that expensive. Can you write down on the text that we can see how? You just said, I don't know, you said checkbooks. I don't remember, but Can somebody write down on the?
Yes. We can actually. So go ahead and one of the popular one is www.gusto gusto. It's a monthly subscription, and I will really encourage you before you sign up for that yourself, unless you are someone who is a business savvy, understands the taxes and the laws and stuff. If you understand that, go ahead and sign up for it. But if you don't understand it, before you do that, just find a bookkeeper or an accountant or a payroll provider to help you with that, because you want to do it right. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our to actually the program amount and add-on amount. But please, if you have questions, just write them down on a notepad for yourself or post them here, and we'll answer all of them at the end of the session. Okay?
Okay, I have a question.
I'm sorry, we're gonna move on to the program overview, but I'll definitely take your question at the end. Okay, so we're now gonna talk about the program amount and the add-on amounts of the grant itself. We'll review each expense categories. Please keep in mind, these are not inclusive. They're examples. There are many other expenses that are allowable, but they're not in here. Okay, just don't take this all as these are the only ones. There's many more that can be allowable expenses. Okay, so so there's about 15 examples here. There's more than 15. Okay, but this is just an example of what the program can be used for. Okay, and I'm gonna go each one of them in detail and an example. Okay, payroll, your internet access. These are PPP, like PPE, gloves, masks, sanitizing and stuff. Purchase for equipment and supplies, your rent, your mortgage, food, waivers or tuition for the child, for the children you take care of, outreach to families. Okay, vaccination access, training related to health safety. We're gonna go each one of them at a time. Okay, so here, payroll, right? This is again, we're back again. Remember we discussed what the workforce amount was for, right? That was for basically increasing your payroll expenses. Now that you have received the program amount, right? The program amount as well, you can also use the program amount for payroll benefits, okay? And you can increase your labor. How? You can pay yourself, you can pay your employees, medical, dental, vision, okay? If you weren't offering vacation or sick time for your assistant, you can charge it here. Remember, you could not charge vacation and sick time or retirement to the workforce, but you can actually charge this to here. Some of you are probably wondering, I never thought of retirement costs. I never thought of vacation or sick time, or I never thought of medical. Well, this might be a good opportunity for you to explore these benefits, because the program add-on allows you to charge these expenses to the program. Okay? Again, how can you document these expenses? Payroll records. Why? Because when you run a payroll, you will capture everything. You will capture the employee name, their hourly rate, their salary, the taxes, the premium of the health insurance, the retirement amount, whether it was an IRA or a Roth IRA, it will all show in that pay stub. That's why it's very important, okay? If you are offering pay time or sick time, it's going to be recorded on that pay stub. These might be foreign to you right now. For those of you who are only a single a home-based childcare provider who didn't have an employee. Okay, so same thing again, time cards and submitting federal and Washington State payroll forms. Okay, the checks must clear the bank. You cannot just run a payroll but not pay the assistant or your relative. Okay. Any question before I move to the second expense that can be charged to the program add-on? I'm gonna go back here.
I have a question, and it's quick. Timesheet. All I've ever done was copied off a sheet to where there was the date, the time in, the staff member signed it, the time out, if it came back again, and then at the far right, the amount of hours. And then on the back, I would add up the hours, and then I would submit it to payroll relief. Is that a good enough time card?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm on my own. I'm a family child care provider. I put that check inside of my personal bank account. I don't have a business account. How would I pay that to myself?
I will definitely encourage you to go ahead and open a business account tomorrow and transfer all the Ccsg grant to that business account and write a check from there and deposit it to your personal account. I hope that was clear.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I got the grant in my business account, and if I'm going to pay myself the $9,000 for the workforce amount, can I withdraw that, or do I have to write the check?
Don't go to the teller and withdraw the money. Write yourself a check to document that.
Okay, so I need to write a check to myself.
From the business, for example, your ABC Childcare, pay to the order of, I don't see your name, but Diagnostics Phone as your name, right? And then take that check, put on your personal, and that's your, and that's basically you paid yourself.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions relating to the payroll benefits under the program add-on fund before I move to?
Yeah, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry about that. I was kind of wondering, going off the question that I was asked earlier, can I write a check for myself at one time, the 9,000, or do I have to do it kind of like the whole 12 months, I guess?
DCYF did not say you can write yourself one time or you can write yourself 4 times. It did not specify that. It just specified you can use this, the workforce or the add-on to pay yourself. However, business practice have always been to pay yourself what you would have paid yourself on a monthly basis or every 2 weeks. I hope that makes sense.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Sorry, I have one question. This amount coming for me coming after New Year. This valid for before, or we have to do for future. The last 2-3 months we have a less kid, but not too much money. But we have to pay our credit or stuff. Is coming working for that one or not?
Excellent question. You can actually go back and reimburse yourself for costs that was incurred prior to you receiving the grant, but it cannot be past January 1, 2021. It has to be within the 2021 expenses in order for you to reimburse yourself from this grant. So Jala, yes, you can. Okay, we're gonna go.
I have another question, sorry.
Okay.
For that check I'm writing to myself for the $9,000 for the workforce amount, do I have to have receipts from what I've spent with that money, or does there not need to be any documentation, just the check?
So can we say that you are just a provider, you have no assistant?
Yes, correct.
Okay, you can write the check to yourself. Under the memo, put it program add-on, or like an owner salary or owner withdraw, and that will suffice.
Okay, so you don't need any receipts for what you've been buying or spending it on.
No. You wrote that check to pay yourself. You're not buying supplies.
Mm-hmm.
It's for you, right?
Right.
So
right.
that check is sufficient. When you deposit that check in your personal account, whatever you use that personal amount, that's your prerogative.
Okay, got it.
All right. So the second category.
Excuse me. Hello?
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move into this, but I'll take this with the last question regarding that. Go ahead, Yasmina.
Thank you. Just following this, the last question. If I have an assistant, that means I cannot pay myself too?
You can also pay yourself too, yes.
I do. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. So the second example that DCYF provides on their guide is the co-payments or tuition waivers. So obviously, some of your families were impacted by the pandemic. Some of them, their income were reduced. They're receiving unemployment, or they were laid off. You can actually use the program add-on as a co-payment or a tuition waiver for your childcare, for the children that that are under your care as a childcare provider. So it literally says childcare providers can also use grant funds to offer relief to the families who are enrolled in their program and are struggling to pay these fees, right? Is to cover the application fee, pay for a month of child's care so that the family does not pay on. Obviously, the money will eventually run out, right? So you just have to make that decision on how long can you cover the co-payments and how long can you cover the tuition waivers. Okay, I think this is probably very straightforward. And the challenge of...
I have a quick question on the co-payments, because I told my parents I would pay their co-payments for their DCYF funds.
Okay.
How do I prove that I paid their co-payments? Because that's something they pay to me every month.
Excellent question. And this is the slide that's going to answer this. Okay. So you talked about records, right? And how you prove that. Well, there is what I call, the blue collar way of keeping things and you being very neat. One way might be you can actually create a form for yourself, for the family. That form, if you are very good with Word document, or if one of your friends or family members or even your children is good with Word or Excel, you can actually create a form for yourself. Very simple form. Just visualize this, okay? You have 8x11 paper, okay? On top of that, you have two boxes. You can only check one or maybe two. The top one, you have co-payments or tuition waivers. So the family who's requesting that will probably click one of these two, right? Then underneath that, you have first name, last name, or that's the family name. Then you have an address. You're going to put out the address there. And you probably have a phone number. And maybe there is some type of an ID, identification number that you give to that family, right? Internal system type of a thing. Then under that section, you have an empty space that has a explanation. And you can write that. January 5th, waived Abdulwali Muhammad's monthly childcare fee of $1,000, right? You put that there as an explanation. Then at the bottom, you have a signature. That signature line is going to be signed by the family. Obviously, above that line, you might have some attestation that's saying that I, Abdulwali Muhammad, have requested a tuition waiver from, I can't be my own childcare provider, Abdulwali Muhammad Childcare, right? For the amount of X dollars. Then they sign on their date. So that would definitely be a sufficient documentation. For those of you who don't want to go through that, another alternative might be, which by the way, DCYF did not mention this, but I think is a common sense. You just have a notepad and you just document that notepad. Today's date, who you saw, what you did, have them sign, and then you sign. And you put that in with the children's file because you do have a file of each kid, correct? Is that right? Can I hear a yes? No? Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
So you can put that in the record so that if DCYF comes for an audit and you are claiming that you have waived a tuition or a co-payment, you're going to go ahead and pull that statement, right? And you say, here, I waived Abdulwali's tuition of $1,000 on month X. And that should definitely be sufficient. Okay.
I had a question.
Okay, Cobra, go ahead.
Yes, so I started my in-home daycare about 6 months ago, and I had to get a fence because my backyard didn't have a fence, and I had to build a room downstairs that was not done, and all of those expenses. And I know that you mentioned earlier that I can reimburse myself, but how do I take track those expenses? Because the purchases I made at Lowe's and Home Depot, everything, I don't have those anymore.
Cobra,
the receipts.
Yeah, Cobra Rahimi, that's an excellent question. We have a category that's going to actually talk about that. So I would like to save that question for that. Just to remind you,
okay,
you can ask me that. You can stop me when I get into, I think it's called capital expenses and stuff. When I talk about garage expenses, ask me at that time. Okay. I don't want to get. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So we're gonna now the third category is the rent, mortgage, business operating cost, utilities and maintenance. Okay, this is really huge. Okay, it's huge because it depends on the type of a provider you are. Right? If you are a business center childcare, it's more straightforward, right? If you own that business, that commercial space, and you're paying a mortgage or you're paying a rent, you can charge that amount to the program add-on 100%. Same thing with the utilities, whether it's from Puget Sound or City of Seattle or King County Water, 100% you can charge the program add-ons, okay? And any other operating cost. When I say operating cost, it can mean like books, supplies, office supplies, the water that you bring for your assistants. All these are operating, right? Maintenance. By the way, that's a big word, maintenance. When I say maintenance, I'm not talking about changing a roof, right? I'm talking about, there is a plumbing issue, there is an electricity issue, or somebody broke the door and stuff, and you have to go to Home Depot and buy a doorknob or a door. That's what I mean maintenance, okay? I'll also talk about home care-based business too as well, but you can use these funds to cover any of these payments, okay? So it says here, or minor improvements and service that allow the program to stay open. Now that I have provided an example about a business childcare, let me provide an example of a home-based childcare. Who owns the home or is renting the home? Please note, you have to follow the same guidelines you are following when you are filing your federal taxes. On your federal taxes, you are most likely filing a form called business use of home. So obviously, you have to review your last federal tax form to say that. If you don't understand that, please write this down, business use of home form, and please ask your tax preparer about that form. Just picture on this form, it's the way this form works is you have to put your business address there, obviously. It's going to ask you, what is the square footage of your home? For simple math, I'm just going to use 3,000 as the square footage of the home, not the lot, the home, okay? Or maybe the lot, depending on if you're keeping, allocation yourself. But for this example only, let's just focus on the building or the home itself. It's 3,000 square feet. You have 2 floors. This is an example, by the way. You can have 3 floors or 4 floors or 1 floor. I want to do a simple calculation. I want you to do a simple calculation, in your head, right? So you have 2 floors. Upstairs, you have 2 rooms, a living room, a kitchen, and maybe 2 bathrooms, okay? Downstairs, you have 2 rooms and maybe a big living room. But square footage wise, they're both the same, right? 1,500 square feet, 1,500 square feet. Okay? You use the bottom portion for daycare business only, right? And maybe at nighttime after 6 p.m., when the children leave, your teenage kids probably sleep there, right? So for simple math, we're just going to assume it's a 50-50 for now, okay? I don't want to get into other calculation, but 50-50. Let's say now that your mortgage or your rent was $3,000 also, right? So 3,000 of a half is 1,500. 3,000 square feet of a half is also 1,500 square feet, right? So for this example, the rent or the mortgage that you can charge to the program add-on is $1,500. The same thing will apply to utilities, electricity, water, sewer, or trash. It'll be 50-50, right? Probably somebody's going to ask me here and say, I don't have kids. It's only me. I live in a house that's a 4-bedroom, right? It's only me and maybe my husband or my wife, right? How would that be different? Well, it's going to be more than 50%, obviously, because you're probably covering a small square footage. But that's another discussion, okay? I just wanted to have an idea of how you're going to separate your personal expenses from your business, because DCYF will not allow you probably. Actually, let me take a step back. DCYF did not say you can allocate this or that way, but it's a good business practice that you should also practice, because obviously you will have to do that on your tax return. I'm sure there's probably going to be questions on this. So, but before but before we get there, let me just finish the slides on this, and then I will take all the questions. Okay. So here's what I meant: utility bills, heat, water, electric, internet, phone, garbage service. Some folks treat Netflix as a utility. I don't do that. It's probably subscription, but you can also charge here. You're supposed to have a liability insurance, also known as business insurance. You can also charge that as well. Goods and services that are needed to run your business. That's what it means when it says operating cost, okay? So if you are gonna pay a payroll provider to run payroll service for you, you can charge them here, right? If you ever wanted to buy a system, a childcare system, you can actually, that keeps track of the kids, how much they weigh, how tall they are, how are they growing, type of books they read. There is probably a system for that. You can buy that and charge it there. Materials for diapering and toileting, you were already buying that before the grant, and you're gonna buy it now. You're also gonna charge it here. Materials for safe sleep, playing and learning. Here's more examples of what you can charge as maintenance. Facility maintenance or minor improvements, such as renovating bathrooms. This is a minor renovation, okay? We're not talking about expensive cabinets and stuff. Just, maybe a wall needs to be there, or maybe take out I forget what that's called, but it'll probably come back to me later. Installing ramps, railings, removing non-load bearing walls to make more space, replacing the carpet with linoleum, and installing touch-free faucets and light switches, right? You can also charge it here. So I wanted to really talk about this payroll and bookkeeping software, okay? And I'm not advertising this. I'm not advertising my business, but I want you to think about this, okay? You're running a business, okay? And you really want to keep track of your expenses. I have seen many daycare providers, both center and both home base, when they come and do their tax at the end of the year, and they're like, I don't know where the money went. But they made good money, but they don't know where the money went, because most likely they're not keeping track of their expenses, right? They're zelling their child, they're zelling their sister or brother, or mother and stuff. These are not business expenses, they're personal expenses, but it's coming from your business account, right? So I will really encourage you to really have a bookkeeping software run by a bookkeeper for you. Depending on who you hire, some bookkeepers charge as less as $100 a month, right? And for some of you, that might be affordable. And if it's not affordable for you, maybe invest talking to a bookkeeper, and they will give you a training, and they'll set up a spreadsheet for you and say, hey, put your expenses here every month, right? And then it adds up for you automatically. Okay, I'll take questions soon, but how do you document these expenses? Well, obviously, if you're going to charge to your mortgage, you get a mortgage statement every month from the lender. If you're not getting it, in a mail, you probably have an online account. So make sure you print that and keep it with your file. If it's a rent, your landlord is not probably sending you an invoice every month because you have a lease agreement. That will be definitely your documentation. Utility statements, you are getting statements from your utility providers. The water company, the electric company, the trash company, they're sending you a bill either online or by mail. And obviously, paid invoices. When you pay your Seattle City light bill, when you write a check, they're not sending you an invoice. That check is your invoice. That check is your receipt, because you know why? It's going to be posted on your on your bank statement at the end of the month. You'll see that. So remember, grant funds might not be used. Actually, I think was it Yasmin Seka who asked about going to Home Depot? I forgot the person. Was it Yasmin? Yasmina?
No, it wasn't me.
Okay, sorry.
It was me.
Oh, was it Onoma that asked about that?
No, it was Cobra, me.
Oh, Cobra, yes, sorry. I'm looking at the names here. So
That's okay.
here, DCYF says that you cannot use the program add-ons for major building or facility renovations, modifications, or additions that require a building permit. So if anything that you did modified the house or added to a room, you cannot use that money, and you cannot use the program add-on funds. I hope that is clear.
Okay.
Okay, the fourth category of the list is the mental health supports for children and childcare employees. But before I go to this, I just want to take a pause. I want to take a pause and ask a question about this, which is the rent or mortgage business operating cost and maintenance. Any questions about this?
Me. I have a question. As an FFN, my caseworker mentioned, she told me that it'd be a good idea to get the grant, and she said that it was 100% you could pay your rent with it. So when I received it, that's what I did with it. I don't have a business account. I watch one child. I'm a family, friends, and neighbor. So I don't have a business account. I took the money from the account and went and deposited it into my landlord's account because that's how I pay my rent. I have the teller bank statement that I have every month. Is that enough to show that I paid rent?
Yes and no. I will really encourage you next time, and instead of taking the money out of the bank and putting into your landlord's, that you actually get a cashier's check with your landlord's name on it and deposit it into his or her bank. Does that make sense?
Yes, I did not do that because, one, I don't have an actual banking account. I just have Chime, and you can't get a cashier's check with that. Long story short, so that's why I didn't do that.
Yeah. No, excellent question, Teresa. There are so many variety of ways of paying each other, but
right.
It's very important that you have a bank account, because at the end of the day, that's what DCYF is going to look into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One question, please.
Okay, one at a time.
One question, please.
Okay.
and you say for a space, for example, you can use grant for my daycare for a space. I can use that money because of COVID now. You can put together some the kids. I need more space, for example.
So yes, so I'm gonna go back here. Do you see bullet number 4? It says removing non-low bearing walls to create more space for social distancing. So obviously there was a wall here, right? And it had a no low bearing, and you want to maximize the space so that children are a little bit far apart. You can do that, yes. If that's what you meant, space.
Yeah, I need more space because, my daycare is small, but I want to I have a 2-bedroom. I'm separate. It's not my house. It's a separate, mother-in-law house. It's separate. It's not inside my house. But, I need that 2-bedroom. I want a 1-bedroom one. I want to connect with the sitting room.
As long as as long as it's not considered a major building or a modification or an addition that will require that will require a building permit, it will be okay. I'm not an architect or a contractor, so I can't tell you yes or no, obviously. But as long as it's not one of these, then you're fine.
May I ask a question?
Debbie, before you ask, your name is not mentioned. iPhone 13 Pro Max.
My name is Debbie Hayford.
Debbie, before you ask me, I was referring to the other.
I apologize.
No problem.
My name is Alia Muhammad.
Ali, yeah, I'm sorry, your name is not listed, so that's why I call you iPhone 13. But I feel like I haven't answered your question, but I hope I gave you something at least.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. Debbie, you can ask me now.
So, and I have money that if we made a mistake, then we'll be fine. But we paid half down and are replacing our heat pump. We learned that the life expectancy of a heat pump is 11 and a half years, and ours has lasted 23 years. It would be pretty horrible if we suddenly had no heat or no air conditioning in the extreme weather. And we were told that if our heat pump suddenly went out, which it's due to do, and it's not got any problems, but anyway, that it would be 2 months before we could get a new heat pump. So we decided to go ahead and pay for a new heat pump from the company that we've been using, purchased one from 23 years ago. They said something about when they do it, that they'll get the permit. So does that, but we're replacing a heat pump. So I'm a little confused.
Yes.
As to whether or not we can claim that.
Yeah. So Debbie, one of the things I mentioned was that there is a possibility there are more expenses that are allowable that are not listed here. Okay. So let me ask you a different question, because I want you to understand fully this, right?
Okay.
Ignore this for now. Ignore the CCYF grant, right? Ignore it right now. If your heat pump failed, you will still replace it, correct?
Yes, but if I wasn't running a daycare, we wouldn't be, I wouldn't have to shut down because my house wasn't hot enough.
Yes.
Warm enough in the
So
winter.
I'm just going to answer you in a common sense answer, okay? It will most likely be considered an eligible cost because you cannot run a daycare without a heat pump, correct? However, whoever is going to come, if they select you for an audit, depending on how they interpret the guideline, they can interpret that as sorry, let me go back here. It can be considered one of it can be considered as upgrading a facility, right? it's a gray area, basically. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I hope I clarified.
Can I ask a question about transportation?
Yes, you can ask me about that.
So what would be deductible? I'm a home provider by myself. I have bought a 15-passenger van because I only take school-age children. I drive them to school and I pick them up. So would the commercial insurance that I pay for that van for the children be deductible? And would the gas and other things on the van be deductible as they are on the taxes?
Yes, so I went back to a slide. Here you see here is called business insurance. So yes, it will be deductible. And the gas is also considered an operating expense. So yes.
Okay, but the van, the payments on the van, the interest.
Can we zoom everybody except the person speaking, please? Was it Portia that was asking me a question?
Colleen.
Colleen, sorry. So the van is considered an asset, and DCYF really haven't provided any guidance on purchasing an asset. So great question. I think we can give you an answer by the end of the week regarding purchasing a vehicle. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Okay. I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to go to our other category, okay? Remember, we're going to have a time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions, okay? Go ahead, Aziatu.
Okay, my question, you just talk about rent and everything. Okay, because I'm a family child care provider, but the house, it's a mortgage, but it's not under my name. It's under my brother's name. But because I'm using the house, one part of the house is that the business where I'm running the business, I pay him it's like rent. Every month I pay him. So he used that money to what he can add and pay the mortgage. So, but it's not, we don't have any paper in paper say, okay, this is the contract, you pay me. But every month though I pay the rent. So how can I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
No, I understand.
How can I document that?
Okay.
Because
the house is under your brother's name, but you're using it as a business, there is no formal agreement between you and your brother. And I'm not going to say go ahead and have an agreement. If you were giving him a Zelle before, or if you don't transfer, stop that for now. Just write him a check.
Okay.
Write him a check and put mortgage on the memo. Does that make sense?
And yes, it makes sense. And the utility now, all the utility is under the business account. Only water I don't pay. He's paying that by himself. But let's say electricity, gas, and what else? Internet, all that is I made how they call direct. They can take the money from my business account. For those okay, but some of the bill is not under my name. For example, the internet bill that's under my name, but the other bill is still under his name because it's his house. Is that gonna be a problem too?
It's not gonna be a problem because what he can do is he can pay the bill, right? But he's actually paying the bill because you incurred the bill. What you can do is write him a check on the memo, write down reimburse utility bill.
Okay.
Right. I
have a question.
Let me finish this for this. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that the person benefits from their question. Then I will take yours. Aziatu, the reason I say that is because if I was an auditor and I saw that check and it had a memo of utility bill, what I can do is I can just say, okay, can you produce that invoice for me? Right? You'll go to your brother and you say, hey, I'm under an audit because I live in the house. This bill is under your name. Can you please give me this invoice? He will give you the invoice. It has the exact same amount as the check and it matches. So I can verify that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry to the other person who had a question. But this will be the last question. This will be the last question, and then we're gonna go to the second section. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So I was wondering for my childcare, I'm just the only one working there. I have a garage and I wanted to convert it into another room for adding more children. Am I able to use either the program amount or the add-on amount?
That's a no-no.
For any of it?
You cannot do that. A garage is considered a major improvement. You cannot do that.
Okay, so you can't convert anything to add-on.
No. I want to make sure that we separate the add-on. If you had a room and you had a wall and you want to remove that wall to create a more space, yes, as long as it's non-load bearing. But if you're converting your garage, because normally garages are not insulated, right? It's a concrete. You got to put a carpet in. You got to put an insulation in. And you need a permit to do that. So DCYF said that's a no-no.
Okay.
Okay. Let's move on, and I'll take your question at the end of the session. The other topic under the program is mental health support for children and for you or your childcare employees. We are under a pandemic still. It's almost 18, 19 months right now. So we're exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally. So if you are really having challenges, you can actually use the program add-on to hire a consultant or a shrink or a social worker or a psychiatrist to help you get through, for you, for your employees, and even for the family members of your children, right? So just keep in mind, whoever you hire, of course, they're a professional. They're going to give you a proposal. They're going to give you an agreement, and that agreement will contain how much they're going to bill you an hour, right? And then when the session happens, they'll send you an invoice. Just make sure you write them a check, right? You have the invoice, you have the agreement, and the check that cleared. So you don't have to do this if you don't need a mental health support, but it's another expense that you can charge to the program add-on expense. Okay. Obviously, you're already buying food for the children before this grant, and you're continuing to buy food for these kids. You can charge that too as well. But I want to focus more on if you ever wanted to change the diet of your daycare. This might be a good opportunity for you to hire a nutritionist who is also a consultant to say, hey, can you design for me a smoothie that's really healthy for the kids that I have a daycare for? You can actually do that, okay? Beverages, groceries. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because you are already doing this before the grant, and you will do it after the grant, okay? But if you want to buy appliances, you want to replace the fridge you had there, you can do that. You want to buy freezers, you can do that. Okay. Classroom materials, you're already buying that, right? Books and other curriculum and stuff. You can charge that to the program activity. Training related to nutritional best practices, any physical activity, outdoor learning environments, and facility improvements to support breastfeeding mothers and staff. So obviously, if you were keeping an infant and the mother was breastfeeding, you can actually make a room for the mother to pump while she's waiting to take her infant. You don't have to do that, but you can do that and charge to the program add-on. Again, receipts or paid invoices for this purchase are required. Health and safety training and COVID-19 supplies equipment. You can use the program add-on for these supplies, masks, face masks, sanitation, anything related to basically the health and the safety of your daycare center or your home care can also be charged to the program. Here's a lot of examples of these expenses: PPE, vaccine access, appointments, paid sick leave, any cleaning supplies, hand washing stations, indoor and outdoor supplies can also be used. I was actually talking to a Voice of Tomorrow about thermometers, right? You've probably seen folks having thermometer and they run through your forehead and that will tell you the temperature. Well, I have seen something actually cooler. It's a little machine. It has a camera, right? And it actually captures your temperature about 2 inches from it and has a stand, and it tells you 96.5, 96.3, and the person can go. You can actually buy that for your daycare. And every time the children and their families come through, before they even come to the center or into the rooms, they can actually take their temperature. And you can actually be sitting there and you can hear the machine say 96.3, 96.5. You can go ahead. Obviously, if it reaches to a high temperature, that might be a sign that the child might not actually be in the center or at home for that day until the child takes a COVID test or is something else. Okay. How can you document these expenses? I am keep repeating, receipts and paid invoices. It's very crucial that whether it's a consultant or something you buy, that you keep receipts or paid invoices, okay? Remember, keeping track of expenses is very important. If you're selected for receipt collection and verification, you will need to send DCYF copies of all receipts. We worry about the IRS because they can audit you up to 3 years. Well, DCYF can audit you up to 5 years. And that's really a long time to retain receipts. For those of you who joined us late, I mentioned about using OneDrive or Google Drive to store your receipts. All you have to do, you probably already have it. If you don't have it, invest in a scanner. You don't have to even buy a scanner. There are actually printers these days that actually are multi-use. They're copying, they're printing, they're also scanning. You can buy that printer and scan all your receipts there. And if you're ever selected for a receipt verification, you can go back to the cloud, right, and print that receipt for DCYF or any of their auditors. All right, I think we went through our slide, so I can take questions right now.
What do you need to open a checking account that for a business? Because since I don't have that, I'm just a family home provider and I use my personal account. What do I need to open up a business checking account?
I'm sorry, you got cut there. Did you say you're a family provider or you're a family and friends provider?
No, a family provider, but I've done everything through my personal checking account. So how would I get a business account?
Okay, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Linda McVeigh.
Linda, so when you were opening your daycare, did you get a Washington UPI number?
No.
Did you get a city license?
No.
Okay, so the bank is probably going to ask you to have a UPI number and a city license. You don't need to have an IRS employer ID number. You can use your social security number as your tax ID number. It's encouraged and it's recommended that you separate your personal expenses from your business expenses, not only for this grant, but also for tax purposes. That's why we encourage you to have a business account so that you can separate your expenses from personal and business. I hope I addressed that.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never had to do that. I just show receipts, but for my taxes.
Yes.
But in order to get the $9,000 paid to me, it seems like it's the only way to do that.
Linda, I didn't say you're required. I say it's recommended. So I will let you make that decision.
Yes, but in order to pay myself, you're saying that I have to write a check out to myself.
Again,
and I'd have to do that from a business account, correct?
Yeah. So I am preparing you for the best case scenario. It's recommended again for you to separate your business expenses from your personal, because you are running a business, right?
Yes.
Yes. So again, I'm recommending that you open a business account. It's not required for you to do.
And so how do I get a UPI number?
You might have to consult with an accountant, or you can actually just Google www.dor.gov. DOR stands for Department of Revenue. And on the search box, you can put a business license and then click the link and follow the instructions.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. I have a question. Just
And by the
my
way,
name
just
is Alia.
thank you. For those of you who are going to ask me questions, some of you, your name is not showing in the Zoom. So before you ask me the question, please tell me your name so I can address you in your name.
Okay, my name is Alia Mohammed. Already I registered. I don't know why you don't see my name, or I received my email to Zoom and then I don't know why. Anyway, and my question is, okay, I don't open business account. Okay, for example, I have Wells Fargo account. I'm going to another account to go to US bank. Is that okay without business account? Is that?
So you have two separate accounts, right? But they're both personal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can do that.
It's one of the personal. Are you only using that for business expenses?
No, just to have personal. I don't have business. I'm saying, okay, I have personal account. For example, Wells Fargo. Okay, again, I'm going to open to US bank to just I use that bank for my business expense. I can't do that.
Yes, you can. When I was saying open a business account, I didn't literally mean a business account. You can have two personal accounts. We're in the same bank, but you can use one of those personal accounts for your business only expenses, right? Even though it's a personal account, as long as you're not commingling. A good example might be, like for example, let's say you're visiting your families in Orlando, Florida, right? You can use your personal account to charge the Orlando trip to that account, right? But then you have a personal account here and you went to Costco and you were shopping for the children, you can go ahead and use a debit card to charge to the US bank account. You see how the difference is? They're both personal, but one of them you're using it strictly for personal, and one of them, even though it's personal, you're using it for strictly for business.
Okay. And one more question. I'm so sorry to go back. Okay, for example, I get the grant. I can use my vacation too. You know, you say vacation leave or something. I heard that before.
It's called paid leave. It's not only vacation. It's also sick.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can do myself too.
Yeah, but when I say vacation, I don't mean book your ticket Hawaii there, right? Just on the check, you say paid leave, right? So for example, let's say you're going to be gone for 5 days, right? Well, how much is a 5 days worth of your salary, right? Let's say you're paying yourself $20 an hour. An example, okay? You work 40 hours. So 20 times 40, is that like 800, right?
Yes.
So you put an $800 check, write yourself, and you put their paid leave on the memo.
Okay. No, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Okay, Momina, go ahead.
I have two questions, but I just want to use one at a time. And my first question is about the rent space. As you mentioned, and we have to calculate the space that the childcare is using and the space that we are using for personal.
Yes.
I know we do that, and we just file our taxes at the end of the year, but we just pay one payment and check to our landlord. How are we gonna separate now for this grant? Do we need to pay half of the amount from our personal and half of the amount from the business? Or we can just pay from the business and later on we can just fill out the form that you mentioned. Was it the W4? I don't remember.
So let me ask you, Momina, right, Hassan? So
yes.
How do you pay your landlord or mortgage? What do you pay from now? Do you pay from your personal account or business account?
Business account.
You're okay. So it's coming there 100%, right? So one way might be and this is an example, okay? So let's say the mortgage was $3,000, right?
Mhm.
And it came out of the business. But in reality, it was only for $1,500, right?
Yes.
So you might have to just document somewhere in your file that you are reimbursing the business $1,500 worth of program amount. That can be one, right? And by the way,
from my personal account, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I want to let folks know some of the questions you're asking right now, they're gonna come in the second or third session. So next week, we're gonna be talking about separating business and from personal expenses. Then on the third week, we're gonna talk about budgeting and accounting. So we're gonna be discussing here on how to allocate cost. So don't get ahead of yourself. I will really encourage you to register for the other sessions so you can benefit from this, right? Because remember, if we say we're going to cover everything, we'll be here probably a whole day. That's why we broke down into 5 sessions. So today we're only focusing on what can you use the funds for. Even though you can use the funds for your mortgage, but you live in the house, is a 50-50 or 60-40? That 60-40, we're going to cover it here under budgeting and accounting.
I have a question.
Before you ask me, Momina, are you done with your questions?
No, I have one more question.
Okay.
My other question is a little bit, and I don't know if it's over the topic. And I was a sole and business before, and when I was applying for my grant, right now I just moved to LLC, but all the grants money comes to my business account, which was sole. How am I gonna use the expense now? Can I just use the sole since I just get the money in that account, or I can transfer the money that I have in the sole account to my LLC account, and I can start spending in that money?
Excellent question, Momina. DCYF did not specify whether you're a sole proprietor or an LLC entity. All it said is that whatever expenses you use for this grant, you must substantiate the expenses. So as long as you can substantiate the expenses under when you are sole and under when you're LLC, you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Now the other, Gregory, I'm not keeping track of who is first or who's not. So I hope I'm being fair to the participants and calling folks to ask me questions. So whoever was it you who was going to ask me the question?
I don't know. I've been trying.
I think that Jim has been trying to ask. I'm Elizabeth and Sarah. So let's try to do them first because they had their hands up for a while.
Yeah, please. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So go ahead. Whoever Gregory said can ask a question, can ask me a question.
Elizabeth, also, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me? This is Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth, I can hear you.
Thank you. I'm a family friend labor provider of my 2 grandsons.
He's got a glass.
Let's meet that person first, please. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm a family friend labor provider of my 2 grandsons, and I watch them overnight. My question is, I don't have very many expenses because I watch them overnight. I get them ready for school and I get them up. My biggest expense that I do now, but I would like to increase the nutritional value of maybe milk and supplemental vitamins. And also I have a question in regards to, am I able to put them money away in Washington State Get Tuition account?
Excellent question.
Thank you.
So I'm going to answer the easy one, which is the nutrition, right? You asked me first.
Yes, sir.
So here, yes, you can use that program add-on money for food, health, and nutritional activities. So that's a yes, right? So you talked about a 529 plan. For those of you who don't know what a 529 plan is basically setting up for college savings for future students who wants to go to college. As much as I read the DCYF documents, I have not seen a 529 plan being used for this grant. Remember, this grant is specifically for childcare providers to continue the operation of their business, right? A 529 plan is not considered part of your business operation. That's more
That's
like
what
a
I thought.
saving.
Yes, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
No, excellent
Okay, and,
question.
so is it only applicable to the time that, let's say, so I think of this as a business, which it is. I'm only taking care of these children overnight. So what expenses that would increase them being well overnight, such as like mental health care, they need a break. Am I able to use anything for, let's say, providing them with, one of them wants to play soccer, then they don't now because of, our funds are not that. We're not able to do that consistently. Am I able to do something like that, or am I only able to use the funds for their overnight care?
So it doesn't say overnight care. It doesn't say a day care. It just says that any activities, right? So I think you mentioned you keep them overnight, right? So I remember seeing sleep here somewhere. I don't know which. And you said these are your nephews?
They are my grandsons.
Or your grandsons? Okay.
Also, we live together, so
Okay.
that makes it even more. I just can't. I know that I'm going to use it for nutritional benefit. I know that I'm probably going to use it for tuition or copay waiver.
So
But I'm also trying to figure out how I can use it best to benefit them personally.
So do you see here it says materials for safe sleep?
Yes, sir.
So maybe you want to upgrade their mattress.
Okay. Got
That can also be part of the program add-on.
you.
Remember,
Thank you, sir.
remember, these examples are not all inclusive. There are legitimate expenses that can use that you can actually charge to. If you have questions about that, Voices of Tomorrow will be more than happy to answer these questions for you. I might not be able to answer every single question today, or I didn't probably provide all the possible examples. I just provided an overview of what can be used for. So you're more than welcome to ask Voices of Tomorrow these questions. Remember, you can use the grant for a year, and these might actually be, I'm going back now. Remember, we have money and grant tax segment starting April. You can drop in and say, hey, I have used the money for this expense. Is it really allowable? And then we can do the research for you and say, yeah, maybe buying this mattress for your grandkids, it is allowable under this category. So Elizabeth, I hope I clarified for you.
Thoroughly. Thank you. I understand, and I appreciate your knowledge. Thank you very
No
much.
problem. Okay.
I have a question.
Wait. Gregory, who was next?
Sarah, Gemma was next.
Yeah.
And then we can do you, Samson.
Sarah?
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I had several questions. I just want to backtrack back to what Mumina was talking about with the rent. So how were you? I kind of missed it when you were talking about like calculating the square foot thing and everything. Can you run through that again briefly?
Yes. So I'll make it quick because we can spend a lot of time now on the second session. But basically, you have to divide your home into a business section and a personal section. And whatever percentage you come with, that is the percentage you can allocate the rent to the program add-on. I hope that helps, Sarah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also with utilities, I usually just pay it, online. Just bank statements would be viable, right?
I'm sorry. Say, what was the last thing you said?
So with my utilities, I just pay online. Bank statements would be viable. I guess I don't have to write a cashier check or whatnot,
You don't.
Right?
Exactly. You pay it online. Just make sure you save the statement you received from the utility company, okay?
Okay. And lastly, my last question, sorry about this. I heard you mention that I can use purchases for my daycare within this year. I guess I have the receipts and everything. Am I just supposed to just hang on to them, I guess? Or how would that work?
Hang it to 5 years.
Okay.
And I understand some receipts do fade. Scan them and put them on the cloud.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Gregory, who's next?
Hello, my question is I think it's outside the topic, but if you can answer, you can answer. Otherwise, it's okay. I'm just wondering, since we get the, like myself, I get the money at the end of the December, and they're gonna send us the tax papers. When do we file the tax? This upcoming year or the 2023? I'm just wondering, since you have 1 year to spend the money, how would that work?
So that's Zamzam. Thank you so much for asking that question. I didn't want to answer that question today, but I'm first gonna read to you guys. I'm actually gonna read. I'm gonna state the question from the DCYF FAQ section. Okay, so the question says, "Are these grants taxable?" DCYF says yes. Grant funds are considered income. DCYF will send out a 1099 in January for tax purposes. The 1099 includes all DCYF funds provided in the tax year period. What this means is if you're already getting funds from DCYF that were not this grant, that plus this will be the 1099. So Zamzam, to kind of go back to your question, let's say you receive the whole sum of the grant on December 31st, 2021, right? And you didn't spend a single one of the funds in one day, right? That money will be part of your 2021 gross receipts. It will increase that, okay? However, you can use the money to spend it in 2022, even though it was included in your tax documents in 2021. I hope I answered your question, Zazam.
I get it. It's just that how would that work? That's just what I'm wondering.
So you see, there's two things here. Let's separate them, two things, okay? One is tax related and one is spending on the money. They don't relate to each other, okay? One is it's gonna be in your tax document regardless of whether you spent or not, okay? But DCYF is not gonna say, oh, you got the money in 2021, I wanna see 2021 expenses, right? They're gonna say, well, you can show us 2022 expenses. You can also go back a year from January 1, 2021 and show us receipts that you're reimbursing yourself. That's also allowed.
So I guess through the DCYF, but I mean, our regular tax through the state, through the federal, how would that work? Like when my papers came and I go to, whoever helps you with the tax return, tax filing for your tax, do you include this money this year? And because do you have to pay tax for it? How would that work? That's maybe another day. But
Zamzam, you have, I'm just going to be very direct with you. You have no choice but to include that money in your 2021 if you receive the money in 2021.
Yes.
You have no choice because you know why? It's in the 1099. You can't exclude it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, even though we didn't spend it yet, okay.
Exactly. It would have been better if you got the money on January 2nd, right? Or January 5th of this year.
That was the line came to early, but it's okay.
Yeah. They say more money, more problems, right?
It looks like they're gonna problem. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gregory, who is next?
Debbie Ccsg or Debbie's iPhone. That's who it says.
Yes. Hi. I have a question about the spending guide. Where do I get that?
Great question. We're gonna provide the link on Zoom. I'm sorry, I can't provide it. Gregory, can we provide that to everybody right now? I think it's under. I printed the PDF, but it doesn't say the ads at the bottom, so we can provide that to you now, or maybe in the next few minutes if you're patient with us.
Yeah, we can put that in the chat for sure.
Thank you, Gregory.
And my next question is the slides. Are they going to be available after this? So like I can show it to my executive director and my accounting department?
Yes, Debbie, that is the plan. I believe we have your email. We have everybody's email.
Okay.
And we're going to show it. Is that right, Gregory?
Correct.
Thank you.
And that is all I have. Thank you so much.
Who's next, Gregory?
Up next is Teresa.
My question is there going to be just a class on FFN?
Okay, great question. When we put this training together, we wanted the training to be inclusive for all the providers, whether you were a business provider who had a center, whether you were a family childcare provider, or whether you were a family. I think the question that is around family and friends is, how do I really spend this money? Because I don't have that many expenses, and my biggest expense is rent. Is that right, Teresa? Right?
Yes.
There was
Yes.
a young lady, I think a grandmother, who also had her grandsons, right? And her question was very specific on the nutritional sides and activity. And we talked about materials for sleep, right? So, for example, if you're having hard time with the workforce amount, right? The work, I'm gonna just be very direct with you guys. We live in King County, and King County is a very expensive county, right?
Right.
So I think you're the one who mentioned you pay yourself like $4 or $2 an hour. Is that how it was? I'm sorry. Was it you or somebody else?
It was someone else, but in FFN, that's what they get, $2.65 an hour.
Yes. So,
and like I said earlier, the caseworker told me totally that you could pay it on rent, the whole thing as an FFN. That's what you could do. And so that's where the whole question is coming from. I want to be able to provide the right documents if I were to get audited. I've got audited on the electronic time. So I don't want that issue. I want to be prepared.
Yeah. So Teresa, the case manager is an intelligent person. She knows the program more than I do. So if she specifically says you can use this for rent 100%, then I believe the case manager.
Thank you.
No problem.
This is Iftin. I'm just going to chime in a little bit.
Thank you, Iftin.
We will have a session dedicated to FFNs sometime in February. One, and then two, FFNs, you don't really get paid of that much, so you could use your funding for wages itself and just write yourself a check and follow the directions of the payroll process. And you really don't have to worry about rent, utility, and all of that. Also keep in mind, if you paid yourself for the past year and you owe yourself some payroll, you could also pay yourself back or pay whatever expenses that you accrued from January to now. But we will talk about more about FFNs in February.
Thank you, Iftin.
Thank you so much.
Gregory, who's next?
I'll be looking for that email.
Also choose iPhone. That's next.
Hello, is that
Sorry. I wasn't. Okay. I know you already talked about the workforce amount with the employee. We need to use the payroll in order to pay that. But I'm wondering, because I'm about to leave. I'm going out of state right now. I don't have time to go through that payroll. I was wondering, can I pay that $9,000 myself through a check and then take share with my assistant? Is that gonna work or not?
Aziatu, I'm gonna give the same answer as I gave previously. The DCYF did not specify. They didn't say take the $9,000 one time, take it for. It didn't say that. But best practice I tell people is pay yourself what you would normally pay yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
Also, it's about all these not utility, like the maintenance and food. When you go to store, you provide food for the kid, all that. Do you have to keep all those receipts? Because for me, I'm using I have a business account. I have my debit card from that business account. When I go to the store and buy anything that related to the daycare, I use that debit card to buy anything. Do I have to keep the receipt?
for those expenses?
I will give you a good example. Let's say I go to Safeway. Safeway is predominantly a grocery store, right? But they also sell lotto tickets or lottery tickets, right? And I bought a lottery ticket. I never bought a lottery ticket, so I don't know if you pay cash or if you pay with debit card. I don't know, but I'm just using an example, right? When you run your debit card, the debit card, the money comes from your bank. It shows Safeway, $250. Doesn't show whether you bought food or lottery ticket. The receipt will break down the $250. You bought food, you bought Sprite, you bought meat, you bought fruits, you bought vegetables. That's why it's very important for you to keep a receipt, because it will detail what you purchased from Safeway. Not the bank statement alone is not sufficient. The bank statement and the receipt are sufficient together.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Gregory?
I have a question.
Up next is Mariana.
Mariana, go ahead.
Hi, actually, my name is Mamadou. I'm just an assistant for my mom who's an FFN. So the question I have is, I think you said you were going to answer that question, is, let's say you had expenses for which you lost the receipts. You don't have them, so maybe you can only go to your bank online and then find the expenses that you did and how much it cost and print that. Is that acceptable, or you must have the actual receipt or a copy or something?
So you said you're Mariama's son, right? So
yes,
we're human beings, right? We're not perfect. I lose things myself. So if you ever get audited, right? And I was the auditor, and you had, say, let's say I selected like 10 receipts, right? And of the 10 transactions, you gave me 9 and you lost one. And when you lost the one, you said, hey, I lost this one. Here's a bank statement, right? Common sense will probably tell me this person is someone who is keeping track of his expenses. They probably lost a receipt, or maybe it was in the bag and they lost it. Me using that common sense, I will let that pass, right? On the other hand, I selected 10 transactions. You gave me 2, and 8 of them were lost. Then I might not accept that analysis. Does that make sense? So it's always important to have your receipts. But if you just lost 1 or 2 here, there's a good chance if you explain to the auditor, and the auditor understands your system of keeping track of your receipts, there's a good chance they might say, hey, it's okay for now, but please next time make sure you have your receipts. I hope I gave you a common sense answer.
Sure.
Mr. Davis, who is next?
Sama.
So just FYI, we are this is scheduled for 3 hours, 6 to 9. I think it's about 8:03 right now, 8:05. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we have another 57 minutes here. So I'm here for another hour. So ask me your questions. But I want to make sure though that the questions relate to what the funds can be used for. If your questions relate to allocating cost or how do I keep track of my receipts, remember we have 4 more remaining sessions. For example, prepping for audit, notification, response, and how you follow up. Preparing for an audit, record keeping, and retention. I briefly mentioned about uploading things on the cloud. We're going to talk about that on January 26th. If you are a daycare center and you never thought about budgeting or having an accounting system, or if you're a single provider, and you're like, I'm really having a hard time keeping track of my expenses. How do I separate or account for my stuff? We'll do that on January 19, right? And then separating expenses from personal and business, we'll do that next week. Thank you, Gregory. It's just FYI, there is more sessions coming. Today is just the grant. What can I use the funds for? So whoever was next, please go ahead.
Yeah, that was me, and you took 70 seconds of my time, so I'm calculating that. Question. Salam alaikum, first of all. And some of my question already Zamzam asked, and you touched some of it, but the most important to me, you didn't get to it, so I'll get to that. You said that funds we received on the 28th, I believe, or the 26th of December, and I don't know if I got it right, but you said that we can calculate the whole year, whatever that we can reimburse ourselves, whatever that we use towards the daycare or the business.
For 2021, yes, you can.
Yes. So everything I've used January or February, March of 2021, I can use that as in part of the expenses.
Yes, you can, as long as you can substantiate all the receipts for those 12 months.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Excellent.
Up next is Lori.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can right now.
Okay. I have two questions. I am FFN and I watch one child. And this money was deposited into my personal account. I don't have a business account, but we pulled our money out of our account and put it in my savings account because I wanted to make sure that the money got used properly. Is that okay?
That's fine. Just make sure that when you move it from the saving to the checking, that you're moving it for the eligible expenses.
You pay. My other question is there like, okay, we take these classes. Can we write that down in our training that we took all your classes?
Did you pay for those classes?
No.
Okay, then what's
so Abduli, I'm gonna hop in. So I think to answer these questions, to answer the question that I am hearing is this classes, am I going to get credit for these classes? Is that the question you're asking?
It's not that I'm getting credit. Can I put it down in my training that I took these classes?
Yes, you can. You can, and then also keep in mind that if you gave us your star ID number and your email, we will send you a certificate for your record, as well as put it into a merit that you took a class on financing.
That's what I want. That's what I want. I did give you all my information, so.
Wonderful. So yes, it should show up in your merit soon, as well as you should receive a certificate in your email in the next couple of weeks.
Could all of us do that? And
Iftin, now that we have you on Zoom, let me ask you a hypothetical question from that. So let's say I'm a provider and a training is being offered for childcare development. The training is free, but I went there during business hours and training was 4 hours. Can I actually reimburse myself for 4 hours for attending a training and a professional development?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, who is next?
iPhone 13 Pro Max. They do not have a name, but that's what I see.
Okay. My name is Alia Mohammed, and my question is, you say the grant start to like spend from January, it's last January 2021. For example, I have to write for reimbursement the check. I have to say.
So I think Saba or Saba Abdi asked that question. You're asking if you can reimburse yourself back, correct?
Yes, it is when it is a start. Like for example, it's from January 2021.
Yeah, it says after January 1, 2021. So any expenses that was incurred January 2nd, 2021 to now, you can go back and reimburse yourself. And when you're doing that, make sure you put on the check reimbursing program add-on, reimbursing workforce amount, reimbursing, add on. But be careful though, because if you're claiming to reimburse yourself, you must have those receipts on file and you must keep them 5 years.
Okay. Is it for example, I'm writing for the check. I have to keep the check of the copy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you can, even though some banks do keep the image of your check, depending on if it was that option. But yes, I'll encourage you to do that. The check and the receipts, okay? The checks and the receipts and the invoices.
The other thing I would encourage everyone who is a provider here, whether you're FFN, FCC, or center-based, if you already are part of Voice of Tomorrow, you should already have a TA assigned to you. And all of these personal questions that you have, the TA will provide support and kind of guide you through the process for the next year and a half. And then if you are not if you do not have a TA, and this is the first interaction you're having with Voice of Tomorrow, Gregory shared a link on the chat box, and he will share it again one more time. Please sign up so that we can assign you a TA, and the TA is designed, their purpose to support you, answer your question, and guide you through the process. And so sign up, please, so that we can support you with all of your questions. And the link has just been shared again.
Yeah. So here, for those of you who don't have employees, but we're thinking about the workforce amount, the workforce amount, it says here. I'm just reading verbatim, okay, from the DCYF. It says, must use the workforce amount to increase their own compensation, your own compensation. This might include for compensation for healthcare benefits, individual retirement accounts. And then it says, for further clarification, please consult with your accountant or financial advisor. DCF is telling you to consult with somebody else who's a professional. If you are just a single provider and wants to know how can I use that workforce amount. If you ever thought about opening a retirement account for yourself that's gonna grow, this might be an opportunity. Remember, it's your money. You're just gonna put it aside so you can probably withdraw sometime when you retire. And if you're, I think, the age of 55 or over, you can put it there right now and withdraw it a year from now, and you won't even pay any penalty. That DCF doesn't provide that in their guidance. Okay, Mr. Davis, who's next?
Next on my list it says iPhone. They do not have a name, but that's what it says.
Okay. We'll give them about 15 seconds to to unmute themselves and ask. If not, we'll go to go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question.
I think someone else jumped in. If iPhone does not have a question, Sophia Abdullah is the next person.
Sophia, go ahead, please.
Hi. So here's a question in regards to where when you deposit the grant in my first question, I guess my question is in twos. The first question is, can I deposit my grant into my personal account? That's number one. And number two is, once I deposit the grant to my personal account, as long as I'm using this grant for my business, whether it's cash or my personal account, as long as I'm keeping all the receipts, then that should be good enough. This is what I'm taking. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
So I'll answer your first question. DCYF did not say you cannot deposit on your money in a personal account or business account. You can deposit any account you want. Just it's always recommended.
Abdullah?
Yes.
I do want to correct that. It's actually it has to be in the business account.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So yes, then you're not allowed to deposit your money into your personal account. You probably provided that, and I'm assuming, I'm sorry, you probably provide that information because you didn't have a business account. If that's the case, then I will encourage you and I'll recommend you, as Iftin said, is required for you to open a business account and transfer that money into the business account. That's the number one. The second thing is, you already answered the question. You're keeping track of your expenses, then you should be okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, who is next?
I have no one left on my list next. There are a few questions in the chat, but I cannot see them. I'm getting a lot of direct messages with start IDs. So if anybody on my team
I have a question.
Questions, or if anybody has any other questions, please raise your hand. So that way we
I have a question.
Yeah, can you raise your hand so we can make the process smoother, so we can get everyone who has questions?
I cannot put chat in the chat box. I cannot write anything.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ask your question, please.
Yeah. My question is, I am paying my rent to my landlord by Zilla for my personal account. Is that a good proof of document if anytime I would need to prove?
So Zelle, it's a great way of paying people. And I do know some businesses are running, are using Zelle to make payments. So I'm going to give you two recommendations, and I'm going to have you decide this, okay? One way is, your landlord say, let's just say I'm your landlord, Abdul Ali Muhammad, right? Do you have a lease agreement from me?
Yeah.
It says my name, correct?
That's right.
It says fixed amount that you pay me every month, correct? I can take that lease and I can go to your bank statement and I see the same name, correct? And the same amount, correct? Then that should be fine.
Okay, and I do still have the contract document, the lease agreement.
Yes.
From them, so.
So that should be fine, but it's always better to use a check, because the check have you're going to pay to the order of the landlord. Under the memo, you'll put a January 2022 rent. You see how easy it is? But I understand, I definitely
She's not
understand.
living here, so I cannot give any check.
That's fine. Then the Zelle plus the lease should be sufficient.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Mr. Davis?
I just wanted to jump in real quick and thank you for your time and your patience. You are so wonderful and so patient. I don't know how you did it, but kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Yes, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is program amount is like part of add-ons amount? Because there are two different amount for each part.
So I'm going to answer this, but I'm going to have Iftin also chime in. An add-on is basically an additional money that the workforce and the program couldn't cover. Iftin, is that correct?
Yeah, so the add-on is additional funding, but it is part of the program money.
Okay, so a program amount is like mortgage, utility, all this stuff we talked about. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
So all the allowable expenses under the program amount is what you could use the add-ons for.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Adriana Luna is next.
Hi. So I thought I had this pretty clear, but the last gentleman kind of confused me. So my grant was deposited to my personal account. I used it for my mortgage. I have the receipts and a proof of the bank statement that it was used for the mortgage. Would that be enough, or do I need to open a business account?
Yes, you should open a business.
Are you FFN or SBC?
FFN.
Okay, FFNs are sort of unique. They're so different from the licensed programs. You should be fine.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Up next is Focia 9451530.
Hi, my question is for the grant. I did not spend it yet. I just received it last week. And my question, I don't have a business account, but Could you explain it to me a little? I think you talked about it earlier, but I kind of missed some of it.
It's okay. We'll repeat it for you.
Okay. So can you, within a year?
Fozia, we lost you for a sec.
My question is like, if I want to pay, the first question is, if I want to pay the assistant, would the assistant, like the money that I pay them, would they be taxed?
Abdul, I think I'll take this to give you a rest.
It's okay, if then I can take it. No problem.
Okay, go
just help me fill in the gap if I miss something. Because remember, you're the detail person. I'm giving them high level here, right? Because I don't, sometimes when we get to the weeds, there's more weeds to pull, right? So Vozio, I'm glad you got your grant, and I'm happy you haven't spent it yet. So we are recommending that first you open a business account. Once you open that account, please transfer the entire money to the business account. And all the expenses that you're going to be incurring, please make sure you pay from the business account. Your second question was, my assistant, whatever you pay her, is it taxed? Of course it is. She's an employee of yours. So she's subject to payroll taxes, Social Security and Medicare, just like you are subject to Social Security and Medicare as an employer. So yes, she's taxed. I believe those were your two questions you had, correct?
Okay, and I have another question. It was another state that it was another gentleman that was giving us telling us about the grant, what to spend on and all that. And I think you mentioned that like if you want it, you can write the whole check to yourself, and let's say you deposit to your either personal or whatever account you want to deposit to. Is that possible too?
So Fozia, I'm going to say the same answer I said here. DCYF did not specifically say this is how much you can withdraw, whether it's 9,000 or it's 70,000. They did not specify. What they specified was you can use this money for allowable cost. So the answer is use the grant to what your business operation is and just use best practices. So for example, let's say your mortgage is $3,000 a month, or your rent is $3,000 a month. Will you actually pay your landlord 9 months worth of rent one time? He'll be happy or she'll be happy, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I bet you would like to keep that 9,000 or that 12,000 because you might need to buy beds tomorrow for your, you might need to buy more diapers, or you might need to move a non-bearing wall, right? So it's better for you to actually keep that money in the bank and use it over a year. However, I want to say this. The only possible time that you might be able to withdraw the money one time is if you are going back and reimbursing yourself from all of 2021 expenses. Simple math. Your mortgage was $3,000 a month. Times 12, that's $36,000, right? If you are a home-based childcare, let's say it's 50-50. 36,000, that's $18,000 one time for rent. Go back to the utilities, go back to the food. Then now you're getting to 30,000 plus, right? Yes, you can write yourself a check for that. But when you do that though, you must have fantastic receipts and records. So when I come as a DCYF and I see a big fat check of $30,000 being moved, I need a whole bunch of receipts to verify that $30,000. I hope I gave you an overview of what the expectation might be.
Can I add one more question? Since you were talking about that,
we want to be fair, okay, to the other people who are.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and answer this question.
Okay, so I have this daycare. I'm barely new to the daycare system, so it's 6 months. So for my rent, for example, I can't say the whole 2021 I can reimburse, or just when I when I got the license and begin the daycare.
When you got the license, you started the business.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, who's next?
Momina's next.
Okay, and my question is, there's one thing I'm confusing still about as you said, and the people that get the grant at the end of December, you said you can just use for the expense of starting from January of 2021. How are we gonna do that? Do you mean that like if I was having an employer or I was paying myself and starting from 2021 to present to December, I can just and claim that and document for using that money for that year? Or how am I didn't clearly understand that space. If you can clarify more.
No, Mamina, you did understand. You actually said it right. You can go back and reimburse yourself for all the expenses you have incurred in 2021, as long as you have the receipts for it. And you can prove that they were legitimate 2021 expenses. You paid your assistant, you pay taxes, you pay rent, you bought food, you pay utilities. If you have all these things, yes, you can reimburse yourself one time.
Yeah, I have all these things. So do you mean that I can deposit all this money into my personal account?
I'm not telling you yes or no. I'm just telling you what DCYF have said you can reimburse yourself going back 1 year in 2021.
Okay.
Remember, I believe the other young lady, if you write yourself a check of $30,000 plus, and I come in as an auditor, you better give me a lot of receipts for that $30,000.
So, I'm going to add something in there so people don't go back and say that I'm going to claim everything for 2021.
Yes.
It is very important that you understand it is if you didn't have income coming in. Yes. If you had income coming in for your business and you were operating and you had funding to pay for your expenses for 2021, you cannot go back and back pay. But if you were shut down because of COVID and you didn't have no children and you were struggling, you were accruing expenses or taking out loans to pay for those expenses, then you can go back and pay yourself. So this money of going back is not for people who had money coming in and they were actually normally operating. I want to make sure that that's very clear. You can only go back if you accrued costs and you couldn't pay back. You couldn't pay and you had to go get a personal loan or some sort of, or you're overdue on your bills.
Or even use your savings to cover that.
Correct.
Yes. So
thank you, Iftin.
I wanted to just follow up on this because this is exactly what happened to me. I got licensed about 7 months ago, and I was open, but it's hard to get children to come in. But basically, I bought everything for my daycare, even though I had no income coming in. I had to buy like cots and toys and flooring and all that stuff. So can I reimburse myself for those since I had no income coming in?
Iftin.
Yes, you can, because you didn't have no income coming in and you incurred costs.
Okay.
Remember, Iftin, I said I didn't want to get into the weeds, but thank you for getting into the weeds.
Good. I saw Mu'mina get excited, so I had to break her hopes.
I don't want to disappoint people, but thank you for...
I am here to disappoint them. I'm kidding. Harun is the next person.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So a few people asked in the chat and one person wasn't able to get their mic to work. So as an FFN provider, can you use the funds to pay for gas to like travel to and from the family's homes if you're providing care in their family home?
Yes, and I think I try to answer you in the chat. So
okay, cool.
It's part of transportation costs, which every business has. So as long as you have a mileage form and a process that you created to kind of track that activity, then and attach it to the receipts, then you should be fine.
Okay. And would that also include like vehicle maintenance? I guess it would probably be just a percentage. Like if you need to get oil changes, you're obviously driving your own car for life things as well. But
it's the safe bet for FFNs is just write yourself a payroll check and then use it as a payroll and then use spend the money on whatever else you need. But that's the easiest route for FFNs because you guys don't get as much as the other licensed programs get.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Iftin.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other folks in the queue that have questions?
Yusuf?
Yes, thanks. So going back to the question that keeps getting asked, if we got the grant in December, and that's taxable income, but we don't have a chance to do any deductions, is this something that we can reimburse ourselves for the taxes that we pay on that grant amount, or how does that work?
So, and Abdul, you want me to take this one?
Yes, you can, because I was going to get into the tax lingo, so please keep me away from that. So go ahead.
Please, yes. So to answer it very short and quick, and if the business accrued any expenses like taxes, then you can reimburse yourself for paying those taxes, or you could use the funding that you got to pay for those taxes.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome. Assist to? Am I saying it right?
Yes, I said to. It's I said
to. Okay.
It's okay. So I just heard that you can reimburse yourself, and my business is a new business. I just started like last April. So, but I pay everything by myself. Can I reimburse myself by everything I paid for to open the business?
Are you a FFN or FCC?
No, I'm a family childcare provider.
Okay. So if you didn't have did you have income coming in?
Like if I had another job before?
No. Did you have children? Did you care for children? And
yes, since when I got the license, yes, I had a kid. Yes.
Okay. If you had money, look at the money you can. If you could justify the expenses that you accrued, and you said, "Hey, I paid this because I didn't have enough money to cover for the expenses," then you could just document that, keep the receipts, and then track it as a reimbursement. And everyone, the next session, the next session is literally tailored to documentation. What those records will look like. We'll give you forms.
No, my question was like any expensive I made to open the business. Can I reimburse myself on that or not?
Is within 2021? Yes, you can.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't want to be a dead horse. As long as you are in the red, right, Iftin? As long as you are in the red. If you're not in the red and you are making, remove the DCF grant from the funding, right? And you made money, you paid your expenses, and you had a profit. Well, obviously you're not in the red, so you're making profit. So you cannot justify, I'm just going to use your government money to reimburse my expenses, and I'm going to keep my money. Is that right, Iftin?
Yeah, but if they have if they bought like cubbies or they bought furnitures for their business, then and they didn't make enough, then yes, that's a business cost, and you can reimburse yourself.
Thank you.
As long as, like Abdul said, you could justify that, you could tell your story when audit comes. We will have a class about audits. We'll have a class about budgets and documentation. Tonight is just to give you a good snapshot of what we're going to dive deeper into. And so we hope that you guys show up to the next session, and we will dive deeper and deeper into how to use this funding. And these questions that you are asking right now, it will come up again as we dive deeper into the budgeting sessions, the allocation sessions, the documentations, the record keeping, and the audit sessions. So please do come and join. And Gregory and Muhammad will put out the links one more time for you guys. and we hope to see you guys so that we can learn together and we hope to guide you in using this money so you never have to pay back a dime. Our goal and our purpose of having these sessions is so that you never have to worry about the audit. And this is like a once in a blue moon where you will get audited. And we know that because the state is distributing this money, they're bound to audit and come after some of us. So we will make sure that you are ready. So there's 2 links that we shared with you. One is for the next class session that is happening that is tailored to budgeting and accounting. And the next link is to be part of our TA support system, where we will assign you someone from our team who will be your case manager that you will call to that will answer any of your questions. So please do fill out those 2 links. And I'm going to spend a little bit time on the chat box because there's questions, Abdul-Ali.
Okay, we have time.
That was asked and posed in the chat box. So we're going to quickly chime into those, and everyone else, please pause for us. So, and I'm going to butcher people's names, so I apologize in advance. Cayman asked, I'm a licensed home daycare. Can I spend grant for my education? If it's a professional development, then yes, you can spend your money on paying for professional development. So any classes that you're taking to enhance your knowledge for running the business, then yes, you can.
I have a question about that. Does like when you had to get certified to do like CPR classes and stuff, I paid for those out of pocket. Would I be able to reimburse myself for that as well?
Certification you're taking as a student, or you're becoming a trainer of CPR first aid? Can you clarify?
Not a trainer, just because I know that to become an in-home childcare, you have to have like a license in CPR, first aid, like bloodborne pathogens and stuff.
Correct. Okay.
And I have to take a class for that.
Yes, you can reimburse. That's a staff expense. You can reimburse yourself.
Okay.
The next question was, I'm in a family, and I'm a FFN. I received a grant in December 2021, so I need to claim on my task. And we use in the future to pay ourselves in 2022 toward wages. We pay taxes again on same money in 2022. Yes, essentially. So if you got your money in December 2021, you pay taxes on that because it's income coming in. If you spend the money and you're filing 2022 payroll taxes, then yes, you still pay taxes. Is the IRS doing its thing? Uncle Sam wants his piece of the pie.
Can I add something more to that?
Yes.
That was a family and friends, right? Question. I want to make sure. It was FFN,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's FFN. Yeah.
So they get a W-2, correct? At the end of the year.
Yeah.
They don't get a 1099. They get a W-2. So you're right. Tax was already being withheld. The difficult part is they don't get to claim a business expense in 2022 because they don't have a business. They can't file a Schedule C because the way they're set up, they have no business license. Would you agree?
That is true. The state will give them a 1099 though.
As an FFN?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it must be different for this grant. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Sherry asked also, my question is, if the business was good last year and next year, and you're saying if you don't have money, you can claim. So what should we do? Sherry, hon, I'm so confused. Can you unmute yourself and ask that same question again and clarify for me?
Yes. Hi. My question is because you're saying that if you didn't have money and you couldn't afford and you were like struggling, then you can reimburse your money. But if we had money, I mean the students and the kids coming and going, the business was going well. Still, what should we do? I don't understand.
Idris.
Then you just use the money for 2022. If you don't have expenses to reimburse yourself, then just move forward and use the money. And for those of you who and I answered a question for Elizabeth in the chat box, and she says our scanner's printer purchase is an allowable expense as an FFN provider. Yes. Okay. It's the program allowable expense. You can use your money. All right, everyone. We want to be very.
I'm hearing. Sorry. I'm hearing that everyone is saying that they got their grant direct deposited to them. I haven't received mine. Will I be getting in a check form? Because there was, when I did the application, there was nothing asking for my account number or anything.
Have you ever received funding from DCYF in the direct deposit form?
No.
Okay. What we can do, Cobra, is that we can support you in making sure that we have tailored questions to your need. So, do you already have a TA from Voice of Tomorrow?
A TA?
An assistant, someone to support you.
Oh, yes, I do. Not from Voices of Tomorrow. It was from Imagine Institute.
Okay. So what you can do is Gregory will send you the link to our portal. They can pull out, they could pull your information and see if DCYF has all of that. Currently, the way I understand it, DCYF no longer sends checks to anyone. Everything's direct deposited. So you will need to you will need to update a ACH payment, and we can support you in that process as well. Or you can go to Imagine.
So I'll look forward to the email from Gregory then. Thank you.
Gregory, can you send the link? There you go. He sent the link on the chat box, so just click on that link and follow the instructions.